back in harness, the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Friday, beautiful looking day. The sky is clear. There's no clouds in it. It looks fantastic. Richard Tice is here, looking very summery, Richard, without a tie. I mean, I've come back from a very warm country where it's actually warmer than it was here. And I know in the north of Italy they've had a few problems. But, I mean, in the south of Italy, which is the hottest part of Italy, everything works very well. People drive around in cars. They don't care about the speed limit. You know, it says 50, they do 100. You know, nobody seems to give them a ticket.
That's Italy for you.
There's no traffic jams. You know, there's plenty of bottled water when you go to the beach clubs. I mean, you know, why are we so useless in this country at actually doing anything?
Well, a very good morning. And it is glorious outside. I mean, it's Friday. Frankly, people should be enjoying the sun. We're having the best summer since 1976. Yeah. I, at the time, was 12. Yeah. I actually remember it.
Yeah, I do.
And what's interesting is actually John Hammond earlier today saying even now it's not as dry and the drought conditions are not like what they were back in 1976.
And I heard him say that he hopes for some rain in October. Well, don't worry about that, John. There'll be plenty of rain in October. We'll be sitting here going, what about the floods?
As always, I think people should enjoy it. Of course, you've got to be careful on anything to do with any barbecues, matches or anything, because it is dry and that does create fire. But, you know, we should enjoy it. We should actually be grateful for it. And as you know, we've been, you know, I think it's important to sort of say, well, let's celebrate the glorious British weather. I've been down to the seaside. I've tested the temperature of the English Channel. Let me tell you, it is fantastic. Listen, I was in earlier this week, twice a day. Yeah. It's like the Mediterranean, Mark.
Well, I've got a slight issue to pick up on there because you sent me a picture earlier this week saying that...
I couldn't resist it.
You were down on the south coast. I think we're about to show it now. If you're watching, you know, please avert your eyes if you're easily freaked out. There's Richard Tice in his natural habitat, right? The hair is not greased back. Got a towel over his shoulder. He's in a place called Sandwich.
Sandwich?
Which is a lovely part of the world.
And a great golf course.
Were you on that sort of separate, that private estate? Because my sister, funny enough, got married there.
Yes.
Because her husband had a place in one of those, you know, those big white houses.
Exactly there. It's beautiful. Fantastic. And the sea was so warm. It was amazing. Yeah. Literally, it's like the men. And my view is, frankly, if that's global warming, bring it on, because for Britain, it's fantastic.
And isn't it amazing there's nobody there?
There was, it was quite early. It was about 6:30 in the morning.
I mean, I did say to your other half that I was slightly disturbed to have you sending me pictures of yourself half naked, but, you know...
I was listening to the show.
I'm not against it. Listen, I'm a very liberal-minded person, and I was very pleased to see you enjoying yourself. But the point about all of it is, and we'll get to that, of course, soon, the migrant situation, because there's a couple of very bizarre stories to talk about. But, yeah, I mean... What I see, and I was going out from here out to Ealing last night to go do the show with Jeremy, you know, the bars were absolutely overflowing. People were walking around. I mean, everybody's dressed as if they're on holiday, which I think is great. I mean, London has come alive. It looks like a sort of Mediterranean capital to me. And I think most people are not, you know, cowering and hiding away from the heat. They're actually rather enjoying it.
I think so. And I think most people have common sense and... You know, they know when to enjoy it and they know when they're thirsty and keep hydrated and all that good stuff. But I think we need to try and stop this complete authoritarian nanny state. You know what really winds me up is when you see the weather forecast and all of a sudden the whole country is now coloured in red.
Yes.
Whereas the same temperatures or higher 30 or 40 years ago and the country was still, the background was still in green. And it's just this constant sort of... It's an extension of Project Fear. I've lost what number of Project Fear it is.
Well, I mean, I actually had a Labour Party shadow minister on yesterday. I think it was Reid, the Justice guy, Steve Reid, and he was saying there's a, you know, climate crisis, there's a food crisis. I said, do you not think we're suffering from a sort of crisis fatigue here? Can you stop telling us that there's a crisis about everything? Because there isn't a climate crisis. The climate's great. We're all enjoying it. There isn't a food crisis. You know, people say, oh, there's not going to be any food. Well, there's plenty of food. There's people now buying up bottles of water, and they say, oh, we're going to run out of bottles of water. Well, we probably won't. You might remember towards the end of last year, we did shortage of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
We were being told we're going to run out of sausage rolls, we're going to run out of cabbage, we're going to run out of chicken. You know, we didn't run out of anything. No. We won't. It won't happen.
Of course we won't. What we do know is that in many things, particularly energy, there is a price crisis. That's the key thing. And unfortunately, with energy, there's also going to be a supply crisis this year. And that will be... I think, first and foremost on people's minds over the coming months. That's the really big thing. And everybody seems to be missing in terms of there's no sign of anything from the Conservative Party, who are sort of gallivanting around the country with hustings and, you know, people, their MPs seem completely devoid of any understanding of what's really going on, the extent of the crisis. There's no sign of Keir Starmer or anybody from
Well, he's on holiday. He's in Mallorca, isn't he?
I'm working up a proper plan to deal with this, which I shall be releasing sometime in the next week to 10 days when we've checked it all out, properly priced, properly costed, properly funded, because that's what needed, is a confident plan that people can say, right, actually, you know, this is how we get through this.
Well, we can't seem to get any sense, can we, out of not only the two candidates but also their supporters. I mean, we had Theresa Villiers on this week, which you witnessed and very kindly retweeted, who couldn't answer the question, how will Rishi Sunak tackle inflation? And when I then said to her, well, how would you do it? She couldn't answer that either.
It was tragic if it wasn't so laughable. I mean, it was just the most extraordinary. And I thought you were relatively gentle with her. You just quietly asked some very straightforward questions. And I've been asking the same question. Sunak keeps talking about we've got to go on top of inflation, but he never says how.
No.
And no one's, until then, had actually properly asked him, how are you going to do it?
And all they say is, well, what we're not going to do is lower taxes. Well, why not?
But if you lower taxes on consumer goods, mathematically, you reduce inflation. It is a simple mathematical fact, and no one seems to be challenging them on it. It's quite extraordinary.
Right. And now we're being told that with the energy problem, you know, they're not going to do anything until they see what Ofgem say. And then we're probably going to have to wait until September the 5th when the new Prime Minister comes. They have a meeting yesterday. Boris Johnson apparently popped in to say hi and then left again. And presumably nothing came out of it.
By the time the new Prime Minister is in place with a new Chancellor and they get a budget out, it will be essentially, we'll have already had the new Ofgem price. But I was appalled this morning. Therese Coffey was essentially blaming Ofgem for having the temerity and the cheek to move their caps from being 6 monthly to quarterly, and that was the cause of the crisis. As opposed to the utter negligence of the Conservative Party over the last 12 years in dramatically reducing our self-reliance on energy, our availability of energy, making us more dependent on overseas energy. And guess what? That's fine when the sun shines, but the moment something breaks, all of a sudden you've got a price crisis, you've got a supply crisis. That's where we're at, and it's completely at their door.
Yes, and I mean, they're making noises, aren't they, the Liz Truss sort of campaign, that they might well consider fracking. But again, nothing permanent, nothing sort of, you know, concrete that you could hang your hat on, nothing that you could say they're definitely going to do.
And it's those classic weasel words that, yes, they're pro shale gas and fracking with local consent.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, in America, local consent is achieved very simply because local residents get a significant discount on their energy bills. That's how you get consent. But the idea that you're going to go around every community and ask for consent, it's never going to happen.
No,
it's for the birds. It's
and also, there's going to be sort of organised dissent and organised, you know, an anti-movement about fracking, and then it won't happen.
So it's those sort of weasel words. Yes, we're pro something, but, and so everyone knows it'll never happen if that's what they do.
Right.
You've got to say, we've got a supply crisis, we need to deal with it clearly by this, and this, which includes using our shale gas treasure, £1 trillion worth.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that deals with the cost of living issues. That deals with a lot of the tax issues. You can create a sovereign wealth fund. There's so much opportunity there, but it requires courage, it requires leadership, it requires forward vision, and I just don't think they've got it.
No, and we haven't mentioned net zero yet, because they won't walk away from that. I put that to the Labour guy, Steve Reed, and said, well, if you would at least stand up and say, we will remove these ridiculous tariffs, because they were talking about Labour actually taking away the subsidies to the oil and gas industry. I said, well, what about the green subsidies? Oh, no, we've got to keep those. And it's like, you know, you don't see what people actually care about, do you?
There is a direct link between the increase in the quantity of renewable energy, i.e. wind and a bit of solar, but mainly the wind, the offshore wind turbines, and the increase in the electricity price in the last 15 years. That is the key cause of the increase in electricity. And that's been obviously accentuated by what's happened to the gas price in the last few months. The Tories are all blaming Ukraine. It's not. It's their negligence over the last few years that net zero has dramatically increased the price of our energy. It's reduced the availability of fossil fuel energy. There's no coal-fired power plants to speak of, and this crisis is manufactured here in the UK, and it's at their door.